Debate, the honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and I'll be splitting my time with the Member of Parliament from Windsor West. Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying that we should not be having this debate today. The fact that this legislation is being contemplated, let alone invoked, is a failure of leadership at all levels of government to respond adequately to clear threats to national security and our very own democracy. Threats posed by con men and white nationalist leaders, including Pat King, an avowed white supremacist who is quoted as saying that, in quotes, the Anglo-Saxon race has the strongest bloodlines, and that, in quotes, unless we fight back, we will be all speaking Hebrew, end of quotes. A man who, according to the Moose Jaw, today appeared in a video receiving support from the Member of Parliament from Cypress Hills Grasslands. Shame. Or B.J. Ditcher, known for his Islamophobic rants during the 2019 election as the candidate for the People's Party of Canada. Or James Bowder, part of Canada Unity, who produced and proposed a memorandum of understanding demanding the Governor-General and the Senate rescind public health measures or force the government to resign en masse, which is a violation of our Constitution, a direct attack on our democracy and our institutions. And the infiltration of former security experts, military personnel, and police who have been key strategists in this illegal occupation, including an intelligence expert for the Canadian Centre for Intelligence and Security Studies, and a former RCMP officer who was part of the Prime Minister's security detail. This colossal failure of national security and a complete failure of this government to keep not only Ottawa, but the whole country safe from a well-organized, well-funded extremist movement. We should not be here. But the reality is that we are here, and while we are here, it is important, Mr. Speaker, for us to tell some hard truths about what is happening to our country and to our democracy. When I say I'm concerned about the health of our democracy, I do not only mean at a surface level. Yes, I'm alarmed that we were not able to meet in this place on Friday and do our work that people elected us to do, but it goes much deeper than that. I'm concerned that an illegal occupation supported in part by anonymous foreign funding has brought our nation's capital to its knees, while smaller occupations throughout Canada, including in Winnipeg Centre, have subjected residents to days of sonic torture and harassment. I'm concerned that neighbours are turning against neighbours, and even family members turning against family members, and this division is being fueled by this current government and members of the official opposition. And I am deeply concerned that instead of acting responsibly in the middle of a national crisis, some members of the official opposition are openly fanning the flames, cheering on an occupation whose leaders have expressed a desire to overthrow the democratically elected government of this country. What we have witnessed over the last weeks is not a peaceful protest, nor is it even a protest. I've been part of movements for justice, including Idle No More, that have sought to advance human rights and real reconciliation. These movements based in love and a respect for people and Mother Earth. There were no guns, threats of overthrowing the government, killing police officers, and messages of vile hate. There was no comparison between Idle No More and an occupation that has featured widespread harassment of residents and workers, threatening of journalists, firearms hitting in Colt's Alberta blockade, and self-appointed leaders who have spewed racist and xenophobic hate. Mr. Speaker, I am also a strong supporter of public health measures, mandates which have been demonized by the official opposition members save lives. They have been particularly important in protecting people with disabilities, those with compromised immune systems, and folks with underlying conditions. We cannot forget those who are most at risk from COVID and the Omicron variant as we begin easing restrictions. Or healthcare workers throughout this country who have sacrificed everything to save lives. Mr. Speaker, the real divide in this country is not between those who are pro-mandates and anti-mandates. It is between the wealthy elite and everyone else. Look at what's happened during the pandemic. Essential workers have kept our communities going, serving food, taking care of seniors and loved ones, looking after our kids, healing the sick. And at the same time, some of the largest corporations have made a killing while treating these very same workers as disposable. Take Loblaws, owned by Galen Weston, a billionaire whose family is the third richest in Canada. Loblaws saw a 26% increase in their profits in their latest quarter to $431 million. Yet they still refuse to bring back the $2 an hour pandemic pay increase they snatched away from their workers in June 2020. Or Amazon, owned by Jeff Bezos, the third wealthiest person in the world. 2 of their Brampton warehouses were ordered to close because of major COVID outbreaks due to a lack of safety precautions, working conditions that one worker likened to a hell, with minimal personal protective equipment and virtually no social distancing. And this brings me back to the illegal occupation. I've said it before, and I will say it again. This convoy is a fraud whose lead organizers claim to represent workers' human rights, peace, and love, but in fact are deeply hostile to the working class and have a direct and close ties to hate groups. It is a dangerous movement that has been allowed to get out of control by a federal government that failed to pay attention, certain official opposition party members who not only support but fueled its fire, and a minimization of the threat we are faced with the radicalization of individuals into white nationalist movements. It is backed by members of the ultra-wealthy, including Elon Musk, the richest man on earth, who won't let his workers form a union, and Donald Trump, the disgraced former president of the United States, someone who was praised by the interim leader of the Conservative Party and a number of wealthy Canadian elites who have made 5-figure donations to this illegal occupation. Mr. Speaker, I ask you, would real working-class movements be supported by such people? Of course not. To the public, do not let those with wealth and power distract you from the real reasons why your life is getting harder. Don't let them shift the blame away from your corporate landlord who refuses to make essential repairs, from your boss who freezes your wages while inflation eats away at your paycheck, or the credit card company that takes federal money while charging you exorbitant interest rates. We must fight against all forms of oppression, inequality, and inequity, and that takes a functioning democracy. I also want to say to members of the government, we will be watching carefully. If there is any hint of overreach or any indication that these measures we're debating today are no longer necessary, we have been clear that you cannot count on our support. Our party fully supports the Canadian Civil Liberties Association's call for review about what has happened, and we expect a thorough and full public inquiry to identify systemic gaps in governance and policing that has resulted in this crisis. Equally as important, we will be holding this government accountable to help countless individuals in Canada who are struggling before the pandemic and are finding life even more difficult almost 2 years after it began. This suffering is causing alienation and despair, which is fueling the rise of extremist and anti-democratic movements. And as we move beyond this illegal occupation, we must shift our focus to raising the living standards of millions of people so we can replace that despair with hope, Mr. Speaker. We will never stop fighting to make lives better, and we will never stop fighting to defend our democracy. Thank you.
Question et commentaire, questions and comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Thank you.